There's a strange moment that happens in many modern cities late at night. Luxury cars pull into apartment garages they don't actually belong in. Designer shopping bags sit beside unpaid credit card bills. People post vacation photos while secretly checking bank balances in airport bathrooms. And somewhere in the background, a payment notification arrives. Minimum due. Again. But online? Everything still looks successful. That's the fascinating part. The fake rich life rarely looks fake from the outside. In fact, it often looks exactly like success is supposed to look. Beautiful apartment. Nice clothes. Trendy restaurants. Weekend trips. Perfect lighting. Confident captions. Expensive habits carefully disguised as normal adulthood. And yet underneath all of it something darker is quietly happening. Because millions of people are no longer buying wealth. They're buying the appearance of wealth. And those are completely different financial realities. A few decades ago, looking rich was difficult. Luxury was visible because it was rare. A sports car meant something unusual. A mansion meant something exceptional. Designer products were inaccessible to most people. But modern finance changed the equation completely. Today, almost anyone can temporarily access a luxury lifestyle. Not through ownership. Through financing. Monthly payments. Credit. Subscriptions. Buy now pay later systems. Leases. Debt disguised as convenience. Which creates a strange illusion. For the first time in history, people can rent status itself. And the economy discovered that this is extremely profitable. Think about how modern consumption actually works now. You no longer need enough money to buy something. You only need enough money to make the monthly payment look survivable. That's a massive psychological shift. Because humans evaluate pain monthly. Not mathematically. A $70,000 car sounds expensive. But suddenly it becomes only $950 per month. A luxury apartment becomes just slightly higher rent. A vacation becomes for easy installments. Everything gets transformed into manageable fragments. And fragmented costs are psychologically dangerous because they disconnect people from total reality. The brain stops calculating ownership. It starts calculating tolerability. Can I survive this payment right now? That becomes the question. Not, is this financially intelligent long term? This is partly why modern debt feels strangely invisible. Historically, debt felt heavy. Embarrassing, even. Now it feels integrated into normal life. People casually finance phones. Furniture. Clothing. Cosmetic procedures. Concert tickets. Food delivery. Even groceries sometimes. At first, each payment feels tiny. Forgettable. But eventually something strange happens. A person wakes up financially trapped. Without remembering the exact moment the trap was built. Because it wasn't one dramatic decision. It was hundreds of small ones. And the systems encouraging this behavior are incredibly sophisticated. Advertisements rarely sell products anymore. They sell identities. Freedom. Confidence. Status. Ambition. Attractiveness. Exclusivity. Rarely utility. A watch no longer tells time. It signals success. A car no longer provides transportation. It communicates rank. An apartment no longer provides shelter. It performs lifestyle. And social media intensified this dramatically. Because now consumption doesn't just satisfy personal desire. It performs publicly. Every purchase can become content. Every experience becomes evidence. Every luxury becomes social proof. Which quietly transforms ordinary spending into psychological theater. Imagine living in a world where people feel pressure not only to succeed, but to visibly appear successful at all times. That's modern life for many people under 35. The pressure never fully turns off. Someone online is always younger, richer, better dressed, traveling somewhere beautiful, launching a business, buying property, upgrading their lifestyle. Even if much of it is financed, exaggerated, filtered, or temporary, the emotional comparison still feels real. And comparison is incredibly expensive. Because humans adapt socially faster than financially. Years ago, people compared themselves to neighbors. Now they compare themselves to millions of edited lives simultaneously. That changes consumption behavior dramatically. A normal car suddenly feels inadequate. A normal apartment feels embarrassing. A normal salary feels like failure. Even when objectively, none of those things are actually bad. The benchmark shifted. And once expectations inflate faster than income, debt quietly fills the gap. This is where the fake rich life becomes psychologically dangerous. Because people often begin spending money to avoid emotional discomfort rather than improve actual quality of life. Loneliness becomes shopping. Stress becomes luxury spending. Insecurity becomes status consumption. Exhaustion becomes convenience spending. The purchase isn't solving the real problem. It's medicating the feeling temporarily. And temporary emotional relief is one of the most profitable products in the world. Think about luxury branding for a moment. Many expensive products are not dramatically better functionally. Sometimes they're only slightly different physically. But psychologically, they can feel transformational. Because luxury often sells emotional elevation. The feeling of being important, admired, successful, desired, respected. Humans are deeply vulnerable to symbolic signals. That's why people stretch financially for products that barely improve daily utility. The emotional meaning matters more than the object itself. And modern platforms understand this perfectly. Algorithms learn what makes people insecure. Then advertisements appear offering symbolic solutions. Watch fitness content, luxury wellness products arrive. Watch finance videos, wealth signaling appears immediately afterward. Watch productivity content, expensive optimization tools show up. The system constantly converts insecurity into monetization opportunities. Quietly, efficiently, at scale, but the darker part comes later, because eventually the appearance of wealth starts consuming the ability to build actual wealth. That's the trap. A person earning good money begins upgrading everything simultaneously. Better car, better apartment, better vacations, better clothes, better restaurants, premium subscriptions, higher expectations socially, and at first, this feels like progress. Until fixed costs quietly become enormous. Now every month already has assignments waiting for future income before it arrives. Rent, car payment, credit cards, insurance, memberships, loans, installments, lifestyle maintenance. The person still looks wealthy externally. But internally? They're financially fragile. One missed paycheck suddenly becomes catastrophic. That's one of the strangest contradictions in modern economics. Some people earning six figures are quietly terrified all the time. Not because they lack income. Because their lifestyle requires continuous feeding. The machine cannot stop. And once income becomes oxygen rather than opportunity, freedom disappears faster than people expect. This is why some wealthy-looking people secretly feel poorer psychologically than people making far less. Because true financial stress is not always about income level. It's about dependency. A modest lifestyle with low obligations can create enormous flexibility. A glamorous lifestyle with massive fixed costs can create invisible imprisonment. And modern culture often confuses the second one for success. There's another layer underneath this too. Many industries now depend on people feeling perpetually dissatisfied. Think carefully about advertising language. You deserve better. Upgrade your life. Don't settle. Level up. Luxury you earned. The message is subtle but constant. Who you are right now is slightly insufficient. And fortunately, there's a product available. This creates permanent psychological tension between current identity and aspirational identity. And tension drives consumption. Social media accelerated this into something almost absurd. People now consume lifestyles as entertainment daily, luxury morning routines, penthouse tours, private jets, designer collections, high-end vacations, entrepreneur content filmed beside rented supercars. Sometimes entirely financed. Sometimes rented briefly for content. Sometimes fake altogether. But emotionally? The brain often responds as if it's real. And repeated exposure changes perception. Extreme wealth starts feeling normal. Ordinary stability starts feeling mediocre. That's dangerous psychologically because expectations rise invisibly. The fake rich life also creates a strange distortion around time. People increasingly sacrifice future freedom for present appearance. Debt essentially pulls future labor into the present moment. Every financed luxury purchase quietly claims future working hours before they arrive. That's important. Because many people believe they are purchasing objects. In reality, they are often selling future time. A financed luxury car may require years of future work commitment. A large mortgage may reduce career flexibility dramatically. Lifestyle inflation may eliminate the ability to leave toxic environments safely. The purchases don't merely cost money. They reshape life decisions. And the irony becomes brutal. People often pursue luxury seeking freedom, then become trapped maintaining the luxury. A person buys the expensive car to feel successful, then must keep working exhausting hours to afford the car that symbolizes success. The symbol starts controlling the person, not the other way around. This becomes even darker when identity gets attached to appearance. Because once someone builds a public image around wealth, downgrading becomes emotionally painful. Selling the luxury car feels humiliating. Moving to a cheaper apartment feels like failure. Spending less feels socially threatening, even when financially necessary. So people continue maintaining lifestyles that quietly damage them psychologically. Because status addiction functions similarly to other addictions. Tolerance increases. The lifestyle that once felt luxurious eventually feels normal, then insufficient, then embarrassing. And the spending escalates again. Meanwhile, real wealth often behaves very differently. Actually, wealthy people frequently optimize for ownership rather than appearance. Cash flow, assets, equity, flexibility, time, optionality, not necessarily visible consumption. Which creates one of the strangest modern illusions. Some of the richest people look relatively ordinary. And some of the most financially unstable people look extremely rich. Because appearance and balance sheets are no longer closely connected. Credit blurred the distinction. This is why luxury industries exploded during periods of rising consumer debt. The goal isn't always ownership anymore. Access is enough. Temporary access. Leased status. Financed identity. And financially, that model is incredibly powerful. Because recurring payments are more profitable than one-time purchases. A consumer trapped in perpetual lifestyle maintenance becomes economically predictable. Predictability is valuable. Now zoom out further. This isn't just individual behavior. Entire economies increasingly depend on consumption continuing endlessly. If large populations suddenly became fully content with modest lifestyles, huge sectors of the economy would slow dramatically. Luxury spending, advertising, influencer industries, fast fashion, premium consumer tech, lifestyle finance. Much of modern growth depends on aspiration remaining permanently active. That's important to understand. Because the system quietly benefits when people never feel complete. And perhaps the most unsettling part is this. Many people no longer know whether their desires are actually theirs. Or whether those desires were installed gradually through years of exposure, comparison, advertising, and algorithmic influence. Do you genuinely want the luxury apartment? Or have you simply seen it so many times online that ordinary life now feels emotionally inadequate? That distinction matters a lot. This also explains why high earners often experience surprisingly high anxiety. The fake rich life requires continuous performance. You must maintain appearances, maintain spending, maintain momentum, maintain the image. And image maintenance is exhausting psychologically. Because eventually people fear not only losing money, but losing perceived identity. Who are you without the signals, without the luxury, without the status markers? That question becomes terrifying for many people. There's also a darker economic consequence underneath all this. The fake rich life often delays actual wealth accumulation for decades. Money flowing into depreciating status signals is money not flowing into appreciating assets. And compounding cares deeply about time. A person who spends 10 years financing appearance may lose something invisible but enormous. Future optionality. Because those years could have been building ownership instead. Investments. Businesses, equity, skills, flexibility, cash reserves. The opportunity cost compounds silently. And eventually reality arrives, sometimes slowly. Sometimes all at once. Layoffs happen. Recessions appear. Interest rates rise. Credit tightens. Income falls unexpectedly. And suddenly lifestyles built on continuous cash flow become fragile instantly. This is usually when the emotional collapse begins. Because the fake rich life depends heavily on external stability. Once instability enters the system, the illusion cracks. Notice what happens during economic downturns. Luxury resale markets flood, people quietly disappear from expensive neighborhoods. Cars get returned. Subscriptions get cancelled. Debt pressure rises, but online? The performance often continues. That's what makes modern financial culture so surreal. People can be collapsing privately while appearing successful publicly. And because everyone else is performing too, the illusion reinforces itself collectively. There's a reason financial burnout feels so common now. Many people are not merely working for survival anymore. They're working to sustain identity performance. That's much heavier psychologically. Because survival has limits. Ego often doesn't. Now obviously, enjoying money is not wrong. Beautiful experiences matter. Comfort matters. Travel matters. Nice things can genuinely improve life. That's not the issue. The issue is when appearance quietly replaces freedom as the definition of success. Because those paths eventually separate. One builds flexibility. The other builds dependency. And from the outside, they can initially look identical. Maybe that's why truly wealthy people often become less visually performative over time. Once someone no longer needs external validation financially, the incentive to signal decreases. Real security becomes internally calming. Fake wealth usually requires continuous broadcasting. And perhaps that's the darkest ending hidden underneath the fake rich life. Not bankruptcy. Not debt itself. Not even financial stress. It's the possibility that someone spends years constructing an image impressive enough to make strangers jealous, while privately becoming exhausted, anxious, financially trapped, and emotionally disconnected from the life they actually wanted. Because eventually the performance becomes so consuming. People forget whether they were building a life, or simply building a more expensive costume. And in a world where almost everything can now be financed, filtered, leased, upgraded, and publicly displayed, how many people are actually rich anymore? And how many are simply renting the appearance of it?